I'm going to give you some tips now on how to effectively read a scientific paper. And I think the first thing to say is that it's always a good idea to write notes as you read. How you do this is up to you. For example, you can use a mind map, but it's again, I'd like to stress the importance of writing notes as you go along. So you need to start by looking at the title of the work and the abstract. And in the abstract, what you should find and make a note of are the main goals of the paper and the main findings from this. Then I suggest moving on to the introduction, and here there should be some background information which asks the question why the work was done in the first place, why is it worth doing, and some background information about the topic itself. The introduction should also contain a list of objectives, and sometimes there's also a statement of hypothesis. All of these you need to identify. Now I recommend skipping the methods at this stage and moving on to the results. And here the results will be presented usually in two ways. One as a body of text, and also as a series of figures, tables and charts. So you need to look at these results and again ask various questions about them. So things you might want to consider in this section is what are the dependent and independent variables, for example, and what controls have been used. So if you're not sure about these terms, dependent variable is what is measured and an independent variable is what is tested. So for example, if this was a paper on the effect of a particular drug on health, then the dependent variable could be something like the dose of the drug or the timing of the drug or the route of administration, and the independent variable would be the effect on health, for example. So you need to identify these and identify that what controls have been used. You should also make a note of the difference, if there is one, between the control group and the experimental group, and have a look at this in careful detail, and really to summarize the main findings of the results. Then look at the discussion section, and here is where all of the work is really put together. So the important findings of the work should be identified. Anything unusual, any surprises, again, if there's anything of this nature, make a note of it. Obviously, was the hypothesis itself supported? And often in the discussion there may be some information about what further work needs to be done to take this work forward. Now, from a personal point of view, of course, you need to think about this paper in relation to your own project, for example, or your own understanding. So you need to make sure that you put your work into context and ask questions about how it relates to your own work. Once you've done this, I then suggest a second read of the paper, but this time to actually look more carefully at the methods and really to drill down to find out what methods have been used and have the methods been done correctly. Now, it's very common to read a paper in a subject that you may not be all that familiar with. That's normal, and so you may come away from the first readings of the paper having some gaps in your knowledge, things you don't really understand. That's perfectly normal, and what I recommend you do is to go away and search for this information. So make sure you get yourself up to speed with any gaps in your knowledge at that particular time, and then when you return to read the paper again, hopefully you will find that you have a more complete understanding of the work. And again, I'd like to stress the importance that this is a especially important paper to read the article several times, because what you'll find is you'll find something that you missed the previous time. You get something new each time you read a paper. The important thing, and the most difficult and challenging thing, is actually a critical analysis of the data. But what is important is that you try to reach your own interpretation of the data that's being presented and can evaluate it. You should also have some understanding of the author's own interpretation, and it is perfectly possible for you and the authors to disagree on these interpretations. That's fine. And I think again you need to remember, particularly if you're a novice researcher, that just because something is published doesn't mean that there isn't fault with it. So no paper is perfect. I think it's important to retain a healthy skepticism about reading any piece of work.